Hi, in my last video, we took a closer look at communalism and the structure of communal societies. Today, we're going to explore how communalism was practiced in the past and consider how this ancient approach might offer solutions to some of today's challenges. Let's start with communal ownership and resource sharing. In many traditional societies, land was typically owned by the communities and/or family groups. For example, back in the day with the Igbo people of Nigeria, land was owned by families or family kinship groups. Every person has rights to the land. They could farm a portion of the land but could not sell harvest because the harvest belonged to the wider family group. Also, decisions about land use were made collectively, like together. In addition to community ownership and resource sharing was also the practice of shared labor. There is an African word that emphasizes this interconnectedness and shared humanity and mutually beneficial relationships, and that word is Ubuntu. Ubuntu means a person is a person through other people, or I am because we are. A manifestation of this Ubuntu practice is Ujamaa in Tanzania. Although now it's formalized as a socialist vision, it had its roots in traditional communal labor. In many communities, chores like farming, building houses, or harvesting were done collectively. Everybody, neighbors, family members would come together to help a member of the community solve a problem, and this was always reciprocated. This support system ensured that everyone's needs were met. If one family had a successful harvest from their farm, they were expected to share this with other families who had less. Similar to traditional African societies, the Inca Empire also practiced communal ownership as a way of life. Within the Inca Empire, the Inca owned all land, but it was allocated to groups like the states, religious institutions, and local or kin-based communities. Land given to families had collective access. Families worked the land together, and the products were often shared among the community, with portions also going to the state and religious institutions. Labor and resource sharing were central to the Inca society. Let's get into some socioeconomic benefits of the communal system and how they might offer solutions to the challenges that we face today. I'll start with reduced inequalities. In the few examples of communal living that we've discussed so far, everyone has access to essential resources like land, water, food, and basic goods, reducing the differences in wealth and the chances that people have. The world we live in today is very unequal. And this is largely due to capitalism, a system that is starkly opposite from communalism. Today, there is resource hoarding instead of sharing. Wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few. There is competition instead of cooperation. Current systems reward individual gain, often at the expense of others. There is deep inequality. Billionaires coexist with billions living in poverty. In our world today, access to basic needs is determined by income and geography. Another example of a benefit of communalism is a stronger sense of togetherness. Social cohesion is another benefit of communal life. Working together and sharing resources can foster a stronger sense of belonging, support, and communal unity, reinforcing the principle where a person's well-being is tied to the well-being of the community. Communalism created an environment for a strong sense of togetherness. Today, there is a general lack of unity in the world, even within nations. Traditional communalism encouraged shared identity and purpose, where people saw their survival and success as intertwined. Today, people are often isolated, even within crowded cities. In traditional communalist systems, people knew that they could rely on each other and share responsibilities. Today, there is polarization, distrust, division. Communities are divided by race, ethnicity, class, ideology, and more. What if the solution to modern-day division isn't more social media platforms or more rules, but a return to the simple truth we've known all along? We're stronger when we belong together. A third benefit of communalism is sustainable resource management. There is greater incentive for sustainable practices to ensure the long-term availability of resources for the community, for future generations, when those resources are owned and managed collectively. As we've discussed, there was shared responsibility and practices that enforced limits on overuse and wastage. Resources like land, forest, and water were managed collectively, and communities preserved ecosystems because their very survival depended on them. However, in current times, modern industrial capitalism reinforces private ownership and exploitation, short-term profits over long-term survival, and the externalization of harm. And by externalization, I mean how environmental damage is often shifted onto the poor or passed on as a cost to the future generation. Today, resources are treated as commodities and natural systems are used for profits. When the forest and river belong to everyone, there will be no one to sell them off, and everyone will have a reason to preserve them. Communalism shows us a way of being where sustainability isn't a policy, but a way of life. So, what are some practices or principles that we can borrow from our past for a more equitable society? Well, we can develop more intentional, people-centric cooperatives like food co-ops and worker co-ops. We can create mutual aid networks through the sharing of skills, goods, services, and support. This can also be in the form of a barter or exchange network that will de-emphasize the use and need for money. For example, I am a teacher and I need my house painted. I offer my teaching skills to the child of a painter who in return paints my house. Or I am a web developer with a puppy and I could use puppy training. I offer my technical skills to a puppy trainer who needs a professional website. I'm sure you can think of many more scenarios like this, but this is what I mean when I suggest creating mutual aid networks through the sharing or the exchange of skills, goods, and services. We can develop community gardens or mini farms that are collectively maintained and everyone has collective access to. We can create or transition more businesses into purpose businesses that prioritize community, social, or environmental needs over profits. I spoke about such an environmentally focused company called Ecosia in an earlier video, and why such profit for purpose business models are very important for the future of humanity. Summary, I posit that by intentionally integrating principles of communalism into our modern lives, we can move towards a more equal society where there is equitable distribution of resources, strengthened community bonds, and unity, a life or society that promotes a more sustainable way of living, a better world for the future generation. In the next video, we will explore another component of traditional communalism and life systems. I'd like you to keep the following in mind. Communalism doesn't need to be revived in its ancient form, but its principles can help us reshape the unraveling socioeconomic fabric of society today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.